guys, it's Shelby Padgett here. Thanks for jumping on the channel. Today we are just giving you kind of the bolts and nuts about my 435i that I just picked up, and a little bit of history about who I am, why I chose this car, and kind of my review and opinion of the car in stock trim. Right now it's completely OEM, nothing's been changed on the car, and just want to give you kind of my thoughts on the chassis, the engine, the fit and finish of the vehicle, and then what we're going to plan on doing to the vehicle, or plan to be done to the vehicle. Right along as we kind of go through this. All right, so why a BMW, and why did I pick a BMW? So I have had I think 7 BMWs now, starting with my fascination with the E36 platform. When I was in college in 2007, when I went to college, yeah, I'm dating myself there, I bought, so my parents helped me buy a 1993 325 IS in Hellrot Red, and it was just such an awesome car. And it might not have been Hellrot Red, it was whatever the red version was that wasn't the M3 chassis. But it was a coupe, 5-speed manual, red on black, and that's kind of where my fascination with BMWs came into play. I started to play with the car, put race seats in it, short shift exhaust, wheels, tires, brakes, did all sorts of things with the kidney bean grills and blacking everything out. And then basically after I graduated school, I ended up getting 2 E36 M3s, an S52 and an S50 platform, so one of each. Had a 97 Avis Blue and a 95 Hellrot, both coupes, 5 speeds, just the same, really fun cars. One was modded, one was completely stock, and they both were super good cars. Had a 328 IS, another 325 IS, and a 318 IS, all coupe, 5-speed manuals. And then I owned a 2008 135i, the N55 platform that BMW did with the true twin turbo, not like the N55 in this one. And that car was incredible. I got it with about 60,000 miles on it. Had Öhlins coilovers with ground control camber plates, had a JB4 tune on it. It had exhaust, intake, and that was pretty much it. And it had Apex Arcade wheels on it, which was set up with a square setup on it. So it handled incredibly well. It actually outperformed some of the other cars I've had in the past. I had an FRC Corvette with the LS1 in it, 2000, and my 135i would just walk all over that car, which was incredible because the Corvette was fast, and that thing had some mods on it too. So fast forward about 4 years working, I have finally gotten into a position to be able to get another play car, as my truck is my daily driver right now. So kind of looked around, scoured what I wanted to check out, and ended up settling on what we found was a 2014 6-speed manual 435i M package, or M Sport, and had it shipped here from Texas. So that's what we're in right now, and that's where I've come from. All right, so the fit and finish of the 435i M Sport, I think that this car has a unique presence, primarily, and this is part of the reason I got this car, was because I'm in real estate, so I do have to go to client meetings and appointments time to time. I wanted something that had decent gas mileage, that was fun to drive, and that I could have an overlay as like a fun sports car build, or something that I can enjoy driving. So with the 435iM, it has a unique presence from a BMW perspective as being extremely sporty. It still looks luxurious enough, and it's just got this kind of unique presence to it that I don't think a lot of the BMW chassis have. The new 2 Series, the 235i and the M2, I think personally they're just a little bit short and stocky for my preference. And going back to the 135i, the car was a great car and a great build, but it was very twitchy and kind of unpredictable because of the chassis size, which comes into play with just the sleek look of the car too. So the 435i is a longer chassis. I'm not sure exactly if the specs are the same, but it seems like it's a little bit wider and just has a nice presence to it. So this one came with the 19-inch M-style wheels, has the M brake package, M suspension, adaptive suspension package, and it's in mineral gray. I'm not usually a fan of gray cars, but I've seemed to have ended up with 3 gray cars now between the truck, my wife's car, and our BMW, so it's kind of funny. And the lines of the body are just kind of I guess they're timeless, more timeless than they would be like some of the older chassis, like the Supras and stuff like that. I see a lot of similar parallels with the body lines, and I like that. So the interior is amazing in my opinion for BMW. Their technology has always been a little bit clunky and slow and behind from what I've experienced, but they are always trying things first too, so that could be why sometimes it feels a little clunky. The in-dash, the nav, basically I don't use it because it doesn't really work, and when I have used it, it hasn't brought me to the right place, going the right direction at all. So maybe it's a maps update or whatnot, but I'm not quite sure how to do that. We do have cool sport displays that show the power, horsepower, and torque with the rough estimate. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but it does look cool on the dash. You have a great way to navigate with this control knob here, and basically you can go ahead and navigate where you want to go on the sport display and within the UI on the car. So I'm happy with that. A lot of the controls honestly look exactly like my 1993 BMW with these sides and the clickers, the BC button, your wipers, your wash, your cruise control, your lights. All that stuff looks pretty much the same as the Beamers that they've always had. So that's kind of interesting. And some of the areas that look newer, I would say, one thing I really like is the new shift knobs. They're much more lower profile than the old knobs. BMW always had kind of this really bulky shift knob head, and I don't know if this is an upgrade item or just in the M Sport package, but this one is super nice and fits in my hand nicer. So also, a reason I got this one is there's a lot of storage in the back. The trunk space is huge compared to the 2 Series and the 1 Series that I used to have. So you can actually fit 4 people in here reasonably without much discomfort. And the trunk space, I can fit easy 2 to 3 large suitcases in there with the seats down, or even with the seats up, I can put 2 in there and go on a trip for the weekend. So those are the reasons I bought the car, and fit and finish wise. And we'll jump into performance next. Moving on to performance, and I guess before we go into performance, one last thing aesthetically, I guess it's kind of performance too, is the seats. The seats are incredible. These are better than any seats I've had in a car to date, even over some of the bucket seats I've had. And the bolsters are adjustable. They really hold you in. I'm a thin guy, like around 6 foot, 150 pounds, so having something that really squeezes me is nice. And then you've got the adjustable lumbar for your back, as well as down below for your legs, so you can really get the seat to really hold you while you're driving, which is cool. Performance-wise, when it comes to power, honestly, I am not impressed. The 435i in completely stock trim, it's an N55 engine, which is a twin scroll turbo setup, not a true twin turbo, but a twin scroll, is underwhelming. You've got roughly, the stats say somewhere around 300 horse, 300 torque from the factory, which they say may be underreported. The car is strong, it's very smooth, very easy to drive. The clutch weight is barely there. Feels almost hydraulic or electric as it engages, so that's kind of nice. I'm used to that with the hydraulic clutches that I use on my dirt bikes. Same kind of engagement, but the power, it rolls on to a strong torque in the low end that starts to ramp up and really pushes on in through the top of the power band. And it's honestly slow compared to some of the cars I've had that have had tunes. My 135i, the 08, would have destroyed this thing in a straight line or even just by the seat of the pants feel. And so that's part of the things that we're going to address over the next year or so as I build the car out. And when you go to shift, the transmission is so smooth. I mean, it's a 6-speed manual, which is super standard. These things are really refined. The pedal feels are nice. The placement and orientation for the driver is pretty adjustable, so it's really comfortable. Your steering wheel is comfortable when you go. The feel for the drive, you still have that driver, I guess, feedback that you get in like a Miata mixed with like a more luxurious feel to it. So it's not completely detached like you hear with the M4 or the M2. It's a little bit more driver oriented, which I prefer. I like to feel the road a little bit, and I feel like I can feel the road through the wheels with this setup. Straight line performance, like I said, underwhelming, but plenty of power to get you, from point A to point B pretty quick. Coming out of corners and stuff like that, the roll-on torque isn't that exceptional, but it will change as we tune the car. One thing I really like is the ability to switch the modes. So I can go from comfort mode, which is your standard set when you start the car, to Eco Pro, which I'm not sure if it actually cuts the boost off, but the car has like no power. It's like driving a standard inline 6, which I'm assuming is what it has, is low boost or no boost at all, but it gets really good gas mileage, so that's awesome. And then I can go to comfort mode, which is a little bit more normal, and then sport mode boosts up the boost, so the car actually jumps a lot quicker when you go ahead and put throttle input. And then you can go and hold down sport mode and go to what they call your sport oriented setting and turn off traction control if you want, for a little bit of playtime. If you hold down the traction button, you basically turn off all electronic controls. Your DSC is off, and it's a sport oriented chassis setting. So I don't know, I've played with the rear end on this thing. It's not that exciting stock. I know they don't come with a true LSD. That's a huge thing that I don't like. Having a limited slip differential makes a drastic difference on how the car feels, especially when you're going out or into corners under power. And that's one thing I wish they put on this car, is a true limited slip differential. And they're actually pretty hard to come by from the M Sport package, so you can get them for like $2,000. It'll drastically transform the car's feeling. So right now, when you go through a corner, if you try to drift or slide out of a corner, the car just feels kind of sticky and it's a little bit clunky. So the 135i was even more magnified with the electronic limited slip because the chassis is so short. So the second the car would step out, the car would just, in my experience, be very difficult to control left to right as it tries to stabilize. With the 435i chassis, I can tell that the chassis elongated setup is a lot more balanced. So going from the power output coming out, as we add more power, I'm excited to see how the chassis handles that. Last thing is handling of the chassis. So in contrast to what I think is one of the best built chassis around, the E36 platform, it's really light, nimble, positive input when you put power down, coming in or out of corners, or heavy braking. Great chassis. The 135i, like I mentioned, was a little bit twitchy for my taste. I didn't really like that you had so much torque coming onto a chassis that was so short in the wheelbase, from what it felt like at least, that it wasn't something that I was as comfortable driving as maybe a little bit longer car like the Corvette. Very smooth, linear, balanced. The 435i, I think, as we add more power, is going to have a similar feel, hopefully in that way. But overall, the suspension setup is really good on the car. Putting the car in sport mode has a dynamic sport suspension setting, so everything firms up. You don't get a lot of push with the car coming into corners, and I think that with a little bit better brakes and maybe in the future some coilovers, we'll really see what the car can do and what its limits are. So the handling is really smooth, it's progressive, it's more than enough for the street in terms of sport capabilities, and it'll be fun to see kind of where we get this thing at. But that's my opinion of the car as it is today. That's kind of where my history is with BMW in general. Dabbled here and there, and I just love cars. I'm an enthusiast, tried and true. And though I may not know a ton about working on cars, I'm down to learn, and I'm going to learn on this one especially, doing a lot of the mods myself, a lot of bolt-ons. So stay tuned to the channel, subscribe. You're going to see this car go through a lot of bolt-ons initially, things like charge pipes, downpipe, exhaust, front mount intercooler, the JB4 tuner, and some other visual things just for fun to start. So subscribe, like, share, comment. Let me know what you guys are driving and what you want to see done to this car.